This is a devastating day for a close-knit community, and the loss being felt is profound. There are truly no words that can adequately describe the pain being carried by parents, families, and loved ones of the victims.
That is British Columbia Solicitor General Nina Krieger on the school shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC. 10 people, including the shooter, dead, and more than 24 others hurting, a couple of them fighting for their lives. Obviously, we will get more of an update today on exactly what happened, but reaction to the shooting is pouring in from around the world.
This is something that will reverberate for years to come.
BC Premier David Eby said the tragedy at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School and the discovery of 2 bodies at a home off-site is devastating. Among the first to contact him yesterday was Prime Minister Mark Carney, who expressed condolences and offered federal support. French President Emmanuel Macron has posted on X his sympathies for the families of the victims, the injured, and the entire educational community. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India stands in solidarity with the people of Canada in this moment of profound grief. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford said this morning his province stands ready to support the people of British Columbia. Karen Rebo, The Canadian Press.
Prime Minister Carney says flags on all federal buildings will be flown at half-mast for 7 days to honor the victims of yesterday's mass shooting in BC. Our Premier, Wab Kinew, on the start this morning here on CJOB, said this about the tragedy.
Well, it's terrible news, and we're close to British Columbia as a province because of family and work and sport and vacation destinations. So to have one of our neighboring Western Canadian provinces go through this is very troubling and disturbing. So I want to send my best to all of our friends and family in British Columbia as they go through this difficult period. It's every parent's worst nightmare to see something like this. Any student out there, I'm sure, would say the same thing from their perspective. So I just hope that healing and some reassurance by way of support for the survivors is going to be there. And also that the teachers in the school community, the school leaders, are able to have the resources and time that they need for what is going to be a pretty tough return to class when it's the appropriate time. So just want to send my best to everybody affected and to everybody who's just reeling at the news because, you know, when you have something like this pop up on your phone or show up on the TV, it can be shocking. So let's just be patient with one another and show support for our neighbors to the west.
Premier Wab Kinew on our air this morning. Joining me now, Alan Campbell, Chair of the Manitoba School Boards Association. Alan, thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
First of all, your reaction. I mean, this is just, this is something we don't think will happen here. And when it happens here, it shocks us. And so I'll just ask you for your initial reaction.
It's gut-wrenching as a parent, as a school board trustee, and somebody who works in the public education sector. These sorts of incidents are always in the back of your mind. They're not in the forefront in the Canadian context as frequently as they are in other parts of the world, but certainly when you're faced with this very terrible reality, like the Premier said, in a Western Canadian neighboring province where we have many connections, it's a gut punch for sure. I had the opportunity to reach out to Tracy Loeffler. She's the president of the BC School Trustees Association and a good friend at our Canadian School Boards Association table as well, to express our condolences from across the country, and certainly for school boards and school boards associations, who play a role in operationalizing emergency preparedness and all of the different considerations that happen on the ground in public schools following incidents like this. We're watching closely, and we've all offered our support.
Now, thank God we haven't seen anything of this magnitude here, but we do have safety concerns at schools. We had a convicted sex offender gain access to a school. Even just this week and last week, we had a couple of schools close because of threats. We had a parent, I think it was Hanover School Division, go in and shout threats and allegedly threw a few punches at staff members. So school safety is a concern, and I know that it wasn't that long ago that the Premier gave some money for an emergency review. Where are we at on that?
That's a good question, and you raise good points. So I think in terms of the school safety conversation in Manitoba, the provincial government partnership with the Manitoba School Boards Association in terms of offering training and professional development opportunities for school division leaders to engage in the sharing of best practices and to develop consistency in terms of safe school regulations and safe access requirements. The work is well underway flowing from that. I think the first safety forum to come from that announcement in December is planned for later this month to bring people from across our public education sector together. I think more importantly, the ongoing conversation about where enhancements are required in public schools when it comes to monitored access and electronic or virtual, electronic access to schools in cases where that may not be the case, has been happening more rapidly at a more granular level, where school divisions have been engaged with the department about, accessing resources to make changes and enhancements as quickly as possible. Not that an incident of this nature is required to expedite a conversation like that, because, those examples that you raised in the Manitoba context, they weigh heavy on all of us, whether or not we're in those school divisions for work or for where we live. Certainly the focus will be maintained and the work will continue to be done as quickly as possible in cases where enhancements are required. Like I said at the time, Hal, there are many, many schools in this province, the majority I would offer, where controlled access, monitored access to public school buildings is in place and has been in place for many years. And in cases where that is not the case, work is being done and conversations are being had.
Is a school shooting like this, and this just happened, so obviously there needs to be an investigation. We don't know much. We expect more today on that front. But when something like this happens, do you hunker down and say, all right, let's take a look at our situation, what we're doing, what can we be doing better? How much of this effort on school safety focuses around a shooting incident like this?
Well, I think, sadly, there's a mountain of evidence, whether it's here or it's in other jurisdictions, that works to inform emergency preparedness and works to inform regulation like we have here in Manitoba with the Safe Schools legislation that dictates, a minimum requirement of 2 lockdown drill practices for every public school in the province per school year. We know that many jurisdictions do more than that minimum of 2 to ensure that students and staff understand how to operationalize emergency preparedness plans in the event of something terrifying and tragic like what we're talking about here in Tumbler Ridge. I think that when more details come out in terms of what led to this incident, those will obviously be shared and will be learned from. I think across the country, provincial and territorial governments are consistent in terms of safe school legislation and regulation and requirements for those sort of lockdown training exercises like the ones I talked about here in Manitoba. But obviously every opportunity to share best practices and to learn from situations like this to set up students and staff and community members to react as best as possible, cognizant, and I say this again, cognizant that the prospect of facing a live and active shooter in a public school, there are no 2 incidents that are the same. And so when you're trying to offer that resource and that guidance and that training, obviously it's all happening on the basis that, there's a hope that what is being offered and the drills that are being offered and the circumstances at that time align so that students and staff have been prepared to the greatest degree possible to react and survive those situations.
Alan, I appreciate your time this morning. I'm sorry we're having to do this after such a tragic event, but I do appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Hal.